Hi there. Let's get started. This is an original story from Secret Revenge Family, and trust me, this one hits different. Let's get into it. I pulled into my mother's driveway at 6 in the morning because she told me dinner was at 7. That's how it always worked with her. She'd give me the wrong time, the wrong address, the wrong impression that I was welcome, and then act surprised when things didn't go smoothly. But I came early on purpose. I wanted 5 minutes of quiet in that house before it turned into a performance. The front door was unlocked. It always was when she was expecting company. Not me, company. I could hear her in the kitchen giving orders to the caterer like she was directing a surgical team, which was ironic, considering she once told me that my actual surgical team was a cute little group project. I set my bag down in the hallway. Small bag. I'd learned to pack light for these visits. Less to carry on the way out. My name is Adrienne Maddox. I'm 31 years old. I'm a cardiovascular surgeon at one of the top hospitals in the country. And in this house, I'm the daughter who couldn't keep a husband. That's my mother's version. She's been telling it for 3 years. Ever since my divorce, which she blames entirely on me, because in her mind, a woman who works 80-hour weeks chose a career over a family and deserved what she got. She's never asked what actually happened. She doesn't want the answer. The answer would complicate the story she prefers. My sister Kelsey, on the other hand, is the success story. She married Owen Ashford. You might not know the name, but my mother will tell you within 4 minutes of meeting you. Owen runs a real estate development company. Big house, big watch, big smile. Kelsey posts their life on Instagram like a museum exhibit. Everything curated, everything captioned. My mother shares every single post. When I walked into the kitchen, she didn't look up. "You're early," she said, adjusting a floral arrangement that probably cost more than my rent in med school. "You said 7. I said 8. Dinner is at 8, you never listen." I didn't argue. I'd stopped correcting her years ago. Correcting her was like trying to edit a book she'd already published. "What's the occasion?" I asked, even though I already knew. She'd mentioned it twice on the phone. Once to tell me, once to remind me that I better not embarrass her. "Owen closed his biggest deal," she said, finally looking at me. Her eyes swept from my shoes to my ponytail, cataloging every disappointment. Kelsey wanted a family dinner to celebrate, and I thought it would be nice to include a few of Owen's associates. Important people, Adrienne. People who matter. People who matter. She didn't say the rest. She didn't have to. "I brought you something," I said, pulling a small wrapped box from my bag. I'd picked it up in Geneva after a conference. A hand-painted porcelain brooch from a tiny shop near the lake. I thought she'd like it. She glanced at it. "Put it on the counter. I'll open it later. Can you help set up the patio? The rental company sent the wrong napkins and I need someone to fold the replacements." I set the box down. It sat there, untouched, between a breadbasket and a stack of wine menus. I picked up the napkins. By noon the house was transformed. White tablecloths, string lights, a rented bar in the backyard, and enough flowers to supply a funeral home. My mother moved through it all like a stage manager on opening night. Every detail was deliberate. Every guest was strategic. I folded napkins. I polished glasses. I rearranged chairs 3 times because the spacing felt off. At one point, she handed me a plain black apron. "Wear this when you're carrying trays." "I'm not a server, Mom." "You're not a guest either." "Not dressed like that." I looked down at myself. Black pants, clean blouse, simple flats. Perfectly fine for a family dinner. But not fine enough for her version of one. I tied the apron. Kelsey arrived at 2. She swept in like a weather system, perfume and confidence, and a phone held at the perfect angle. She was recording herself walking through the house, narrating like a lifestyle influencer, which, to be fair, she was. 200,000 followers and a brand deal with a handbag company. "Oh my God, Mom, the patio looks incredible," she said, panning the camera slowly. "Doesn't it?" my mother replied, beaming. Kelsey noticed me near the bar, arranging wine glasses. She turned the camera slightly. "And there's my sister. Helping out. Love that for you, Adri." She said it the way people say "bless your heart." Warm on the surface, nothing underneath. "Still doing the hospital thing?" she asked, lowering her phone for a second. "Still doing the hospital thing," I said. She smiled. "You should really think about content creation. Healthcare stuff does well. You could film those little behind-the-scenes moments. Day in my life as a nurse, or whatever. I'm a surgeon, Kelsey. Right. Same world, though. She was already walking away. Owen showed up an hour later. Firm handshake, loud voice, the kind of man who enters every room like he's already been applauded. He kissed my mother on the cheek, complimented the flowers, and shook my hand like I was a valet. Adrienne, good to see you. Keeping busy? Always. That's the spirit. He patted my shoulder and moved on. My mother watched him go with actual pride in her eyes, more pride than she'd ever directed at me, and I'd held a human heart in my hands and kept it beating. Guests started arriving around 6. Men in blazers, women in cocktail dresses, laughter that ran on money. I recognized a few faces from Kelsey's posts, but none from my own life. My mother intercepted me in the hallway. Listen, she said quietly. Owen has a very important associate coming tonight. Richard Calloway. Big investor. Huge deal in the works. I need you to stay in the background. Don't bring up the hospital. Don't talk about your divorce. Don't make it about you. When have I ever made it about me? She didn't answer. She just straightened a napkin on the table and moved on. I poured drinks. I cleared plates. I refilled ice buckets. No one asked who I was. A few assumed I was hired help. One woman handed me her empty glass without making eye contact and said, "Another Chardonnay, dear." I brought her the Chardonnay. At dinner, my mother seated me at the far end of the table. Kelsey and Owen sat at the center, of course, flanking her like a royal portrait. The conversation was all business: markets, acquisitions, property values, vacation homes. Owen held court, telling stories that were mostly about himself but dressed up as lessons. Someone asked what I did. She works at a hospital, my mother said quickly, before I could answer. Support role, behind the scenes. She's a nurse, Kelsey added helpfully, or something like that. Owen nodded. Respectable work. The word respectable landed like a consolation prize. My mother leaned forward and topped it off. Adrienne has always been the helper in the family. Not everyone's meant to lead. Someone has to hold the flashlight. Right? She laughed. A few guests laughed with her. I set down my fork, not dramatically, just quietly. I pressed my napkin against the edge of the table and sat still for a moment, letting the heat pass through me without reaching my face. "Excuse me," I said, standing up. "I need some air." Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody even looked up. I stood on the back porch, hands on the railing, breathing in the jasmine my mother planted specifically for tonight. That's the thing about this house. Everything in it was designed to impress people who didn't live here, including me. Have you ever stood in a place you used to call home and realized it was never built for you? That the room you grew up in was just a holding space until someone more impressive filled it? That's what it feels like. Not rejection, replacement. I went back inside. The evening shifted around 9. Guests had moved to the living room. Music played low. Someone opened a third bottle of something expensive. Owen was mid-story when the doorbell rang. My mother answered it. I heard her voice change instantly, higher, faster, the one she used when she was trying to impress someone she'd never met. "Oh, you must be Richard. Owen has told us so much about you. Please come in." The man who walked in was tall, silver-haired, composed. He wore a dark suit with no tie and carried himself with the kind of authority that doesn't ask for attention but gets it anyway. Behind him was a younger woman, mid-40s, sharp eyes, quiet posture. His assistant, I assumed. Owen rushed over. "Richard, so glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," the man said. His voice was calm, measured, like every word was chosen before it was spoken. My mother offered wine. He declined. "Water," he said. Plain. Kelsey tried to loop him into a conversation about real estate in Aspen. He listened politely, then changed the subject. I stayed near the kitchen, half watching. I wasn't going to insert myself. I'd learned that lesson. Then something happened. Richard's assistant suddenly inhaled sharply, grabbed the edge of the counter, and collapsed. Not slowly, not gracefully. Her body dropped like the power had been cut. Her head hit the edge of the side table on the way down. Blood appeared immediately, and she wasn't breathing. The room froze. Kelsey screamed. Owen took a step back. My mother pressed both hands to her mouth and said, "Oh my God, someone call 911. One guest pulled out his phone, but his hands were shaking so badly he couldn't unlock it. I was already moving. I dropped to my knees beside her, tilted her head back, checked her airway. Obstructed. Her tongue had fallen back, and there was blood pooling in her mouth from the head wound. I swept it clear with 2 fingers, repositioned her jaw, and checked for a pulse. Weak, thready, dropping. "I need towels," I said. My voice was steady. It always is, clean ones, now. "And someone actually call 911. Don't just hold the phone." Nobody moved. "Now." Owen stepped forward, confused. "Should we move her?" "Don't touch her," I said. "She may have a cervical injury from the fall." My mother hovered behind me. "Adrienne, maybe we should wait for the paramedics." "She won't make it to the paramedics if I wait." The bleeding from her scalp was heavy. I grabbed a napkin from the table and pressed it against the wound, firm and direct. With my other hand, I monitored her pulse. It was getting weaker. She stopped breathing. I started CPR immediately. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Rhythmic, controlled. I could feel her ribs flex under my palms. I knew the angle. I knew the depth. This wasn't my first time. "Come on," I said quietly. Not to the room. To her. Kelsey stood behind me, phone raised. Recording. I didn't look up. I didn't have time to care. 15 seconds. 30. 45. She gasped. 1 breath. Then another. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at me with the blank terror of someone who didn't know where she was. "You're okay," I said. "Stay still. You hit your head. Help is coming." She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was weak, but the intention was strong. "Thank you," she whispered. I applied pressure to the head wound and maintained her airway until the paramedics arrived 7 minutes later. 7 minutes of holding a woman's life in my hands in a room full of people who had just called me the flashlight holder. When the EMTs took over, I stood up slowly. My knees ached. My hands were covered in blood. My blouse was ruined. The room was silent. Richard Calloway had been standing 3 feet away the entire time. Watching, not panicking, not interfering, just watching the way someone does when they're seeing something they recognize. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he spoke. "What's your name?" "Adrienne Maddox," I said. Something shifted in his face. Not surprise exactly. Recognition. "Maddox," he repeated quietly. Then louder. "Dr. Adrienne Maddox." My mother frowned. "She's not a..." "Quiet." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The word landed like a gavel. He took a step closer to me. "You performed the emergency valve repair on Senator Mitchell's wife last year at Johns Hopkins." The room went dead silent. "Yes," I said. "You pioneered the minimally invasive technique that's now being adopted across 6 cardiac centers." "That's part of my research, yes." He turned to my mother. His expression wasn't angry. It was worse. It was clear. "You told your dinner guests that this woman holds flashlights." My mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Richard reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Not a business card, a photograph, worn at the edges. A woman in a hospital bed, pale but smiling. Tubes in her arm, a monitor beeping behind her. "This is my wife," he said. 2 years ago, her heart was failing. 3 hospitals told us there was nothing left to do. 1 surgeon disagreed. He looked at me. "You operated for 11 hours. You called me at 3 in the morning to tell me she was stable. You sat with me in the waiting room until she woke up." I remembered. Room 4112, Catherine Calloway. Severe mitral valve degeneration with complications. I remembered her husband's face in the fluorescent light, gray with fear. I remembered telling him it wasn't over yet, but we were fighting. "Your wife sends me a card every Christmas," I said quietly. Richard's eyes were wet now. He didn't wipe them. He didn't hide it. He took my hand, the one still streaked with blood, and he held it the way people hold things they consider sacred. "This woman," he said to the room, his voice low but unshakable, "is one of the finest cardiac surgeons in this country. She saved my wife's life when no one else would try. And you put her in an apron and told her to pour wine." The room didn't move. My mother stepped forward, voice shaking. We didn't know. She never told us." "She shouldn't have had to," Richard said. He released my hand gently and straightened his jacket. Then he looked at Owen. "We're done here," he said. Not with malice, with finality. Owen's face drained of color. "Richard, the deal we can still talk about. I don't do business with people who can't see what's standing in front of them." He buttoned his jacket. "I'll send someone for Margaret's things from the hospital." My mother grabbed my arm. Adrienne, tell him. Tell him we're proud of you. Tell him this is just how families talk. I looked at her hand on my sleeve. The same hand that had handed me an apron 5 hours ago. The same hand that had waved away my gift without opening it. Let go, I said. She did. Kelsey rushed forward, mascara smeared, phone nowhere in sight for once. Adri, I didn't mean the nurse thing. I was joking. You know I support you. You were recording me doing CPR, I said. She blinked. I wasn't going to post it. But you filmed it. She had nothing. Owen tried one more time. Adrienne, maybe if you could just talk to Richard. Explain that. Explain what? I said. That you spent the evening calling me the help and now you need my credibility? He stepped back. My mother was crying now. This isn't fair. You never told us. You never said. I told you. Every visit, every call. I told you I was in surgery. I told you I was presenting at conferences. I told you I was published. You heard hospital and decided that was enough information. She shook her head. If I had known, you would have bragged about me. That's not the same as respecting me. The room was still. Guests looked at their shoes. Someone quietly put down a wine glass like even the sound of it would be too much. Richard was already at the door. He turned back one last time. Dr. Maddox. If you need anything, you know where to reach me. I nodded. Thank you, Richard. Give Catherine my best. I will. She'll want to hear about tonight. The smallest smile. She always said you were too humble for your own good. Not humble, I said. Just tired of auditions. He left. The door closed behind him with the kind of quiet that fills a room louder than any slam. I stood there for a moment, blood still on my hands, apron still tied around my waist. Then I reached behind my back, untied the apron, folded it neatly, and set it on the counter. Right next to the box she never opened. I picked up my bag. Adrienne, please, my mother said. We can fix this. Sit down. Let's talk. There's nothing to fix, I said. This is exactly what it's always been. That's not true. I love you. I know you do. You just don't respect me. And I spent 10 years hoping those were the same thing. They're not. Kelsey tried one more time. You can't just leave. We're family. Family doesn't put you in an apron and tell you to stay out of sight. I walked to the front door. Behind me, I heard my mother sit down hard, like her legs had given up the argument her mouth was still trying to win. Outside, the night air hit me clean. No perfume, no pretense. Just jasmine and pavement and the sound of my own breathing. I got in my car, set my bag on the passenger seat, sat still for 30 seconds. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Please come back inside. We can work this out. Richard will understand. I read it once. Then I set the phone in the cup holder, face down. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel powerful. I felt something quieter than that. Lighter. Like I'd been carrying a bag I didn't pack, and I'd finally set it down. The drive home was 40 minutes. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't need noise to fill anything. The silence was enough. Not the empty kind, the earned kind. As I pulled onto the highway, I thought about what Richard said. You put her in an apron and told her to pour wine. He wasn't angry for me, he was confused. Confused that a woman who had held his wife's heart in her hands could be reduced to a napkin folder by the people who were supposed to know her best. That confusion told me everything. Because the truth is, my mother wasn't confused. She never was. She knew I was a surgeon. She knew I had published papers and presented at conferences. She knew I'd won awards she never attended ceremonies for. She knew all of it. She just didn't value it. Because my career didn't come with a husband attached. It didn't come with Instagram posts and engagement rings and holiday photos she could forward to her friends. It came with long hours and missed holidays and a divorce that embarrassed her at book club. So she edited me. She turned cardiovascular surgeon into hospital worker. She turned published researcher into, she reads a lot. She turned my life into something small enough that Kelsey's could look big by comparison. That's not ignorance, that's a choice. And once I understood that, I stopped being hurt by it. I just got clear. Here's what most people don't tell you about being underestimated by your own family. It's not one big moment. It's not a single cruel sentence. It's the accumulation. Hundreds of small dismissals stacked so neatly that you start to think the pile is just the ground you stand on. You stop correcting them. You stop explaining. You start shrinking your language to avoid their eye rolls. You don't lose your ability. You lose your willingness to show it. And the dangerous part is how normal that becomes. For years, I thought the answer was simple: achieve more. Be so undeniable they'd have to change their mind. But people who benefit from underestimating you aren't confused. They're invested. Your success doesn't threaten them because it's impossible. It threatens them because it breaks the role they assigned you. My mother needed me to be the cautionary tale, the daughter who chose wrong. Because if I was actually thriving, she'd have to ask herself why she spent a decade pitying me instead of paying attention. And that question is harder than any surgery I've ever performed. The night I left that house, I didn't feel revenge. I felt clarity. And clarity is the most underrated form of strength. People think walking away means you've given up. It doesn't. It means you've finally done the math and realized the cost of staying exceeds anything that room will ever give you back. I got home around midnight. Small apartment. Clean. Quiet. No mirrors trying to impress anyone. I dropped my bag by the door, washed the blood off my hands, and sat on the edge of my bed. My phone buzzed 3 more times. My mother, Kelsey, even Owen, which almost made me laugh. I didn't answer any of them. Not out of anger, out of maintenance. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're the fence around the part of your life that still works. The next morning, I went to the hospital. I had a 7 a.m. consult and a 9 a.m. procedure. A 62-year-old man with an aortic aneurysm who held his wife's hand in the pre-op room like the world was ending. I told him it wasn't. I told him I'd see him on the other side. And I did. That afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Richard Calloway's office. His wife, Catherine, wanted to invite me to dinner. Just dinner. No agenda, no audience. Just a meal with people who already knew who I was and didn't need to be reminded. I said yes. 2 weeks later, I sat at their kitchen table eating roast chicken and laughing about something small and meaningless. Catherine touched my hand at one point and said, "You look lighter." I told her I'd set something down. She understood. My mother called 6 more times that week. I answered on the 7th. She started with, "I've been thinking about what happened," and I let her talk. She apologized the way people do when they want the discomfort to stop. Not the way people do when they actually understand what they did. "I want us to move forward," she said. "So do I replied. "But forward doesn't mean back into the same room with the same rules." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not wearing the apron again. It means when you introduce me, you use the word surgeon, not helper, not support, not behind the scenes. It means if you can't do that, we can love each other from a distance." She was quiet for a long time. "That feels extreme," she finally said. "It feels honest," I replied, "and I'm choosing honest over comfortable." She didn't agree. She didn't argue either. We hung up and I sat in the silence for a while. Not sad, not relieved, just clear. Here's the thing I wish someone had told me 10 years ago. You can love people who don't see you, but you cannot build a life waiting for their vision to improve. Some people will only respect you when someone else forces it into the room. And respect that arrives only after public embarrassment isn't respect. It's recalculation. The real question isn't whether they'll change. It's whether you'll keep paying the cost of hoping they will. So here's what I'll leave you with. In your life, right now, who benefits from you being seen as less? And what would change if you stopped performing smallness so someone else could feel big? Think about it. Not defensively, just honestly. And if you already know the answer, maybe the only thing left to decide is this. Are you ready to untie the apron? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this one resonate with you, subscribe for more. There's a lot more to talk about.